Welcome back. The last time we talked, we were in Carcassonne and heading to go pick up our camper van. It was a top optional beach. I think I would have been more upset if it was more expensive, but it wasn't. But I recommend the insurance. Road Surfer has a lot of different locations throughout Europe and throughout France. We looked at flying somewhere else and landing there. We looked at trains. We looked at even driving there. We had to keep all of this into consideration because some places allow you to pick up one place and drop off another. Some places don't. The logistics are a little tricky. We were traveling mostly by train, so we really wanted to stick with that. All in all, it led us to the Bordeaux Road Surfer location because the Road Surfer pickup spot was just outside of the Bordeaux Airport, and there was a bus that took you almost there. So we still had our car from Carcassonne because we rented a car in Avignon to go over to the lavender fields in the countryside. And then we took that car to Carcassonne and then used that car to drive us over to the Road Surfers location. Once we got all checked in with the camper van, which is a process, and I'll go into that in just a minute, we loaded up the van with all of our stuff from our car. Loaded it up, locked it up, got back in the car, and drove over to the Bordeaux Airport around the corner. See, this is why we picked it. So good, right? Okay, so we drove over, dropped off our rental car. That was pretty easy, very simple. Walked over to the bus station to then hop on a bus to take us back. The bus dropped us off about a block or so away from the Road Surfer spot. Easy peasy, right? It was so good. It was so good. I don't know who picked that location, but like genius. Like that's a great spot for a Road Surfer spot. Once we were back, we were ready to go. When you rent a camper van in Europe, they go through all the things. I don't know how it is in America. I've never used Road Surfer or rented a camper van in the States, so I don't know. If you've experienced in the States what that's like, feel free to comment, share, tag, so that anyone who's looking to rent a camper van in the States, whether they're in the States or coming from a different country to visit the States, so they can get an idea of what it's like over here. For our experience, you check in, sign all the paperwork, they check all the things, they make sure everything's paid, that you've got the insurance and all the things. Next, you go outside and you go kind of through this checklist. They send you a checklist in the confirmation email, and you kind of have to go through it on your own. And at first, it feels very overwhelming and like, what am I getting myself into? Like, I don't understand some of this. Maybe 80% of it you understand, but like you feel like if your life was dependent on it, you may die. That's how it might feel. Luckily, after you sign all the paperwork, when you get there, you have an assistant come out and they walk you through this checklist. And they have you take your own photos and videos of the vehicle to make sure you have proof of existing damage, if any, and functionality. So not only are you going to take a few photos and videos of the outside, you're also going to do it of the inside. They check things such as water, electric, propane. They check the awning. They check the pop top. They make sure that you can use all of these things. It's part of their checklist to make sure you know how to work these things, put away these things, where they are, how to set everything up. Mostly so you don't break their stuff, right? But it's really, really nice. She did point out with ours, it had been broken before us with the hydraulics in the seat, so it was a little trickier to open the bench seat and turn it into a bed. Not really that much harder, other than the fact that I probably needed to get to the gym. It's fine. I ran into a tricky issue with rotating the driver's seat around like a living situation where like everybody turns around and you pop the table up and you sit inside together. We never did that. I'm glad that I learned how to do that, because I think we would do it now if we did it again this summer, but we ended up never doing that. It didn't rain while we were camping, so that's, a great part. And I could see us using that if it was like super rainy, or if we stayed in a spot a longer time. We also had just too much stuff for this. Our gear for this entire trip was just a little too much for just a camper van trip. I think if we got an RV, it would have been much better, because they have that storage section in the back that we could have just left all the clothes and all the extra luggage that we weren't really using back there. We have done an RV before, but it was a little tricky with small European roads. I was not loving that idea for just driving around with just myself as the only adult and the only driver, and a whole bunch of kids. So we did a camper van. It does get a little crowded, but I feel like we made it work. It was fine. She even had a hard time rotating that seat around, so I didn't feel too bad. I apparently made a sound when I finally figured it out. So throughout this trip, my kids had picked up little mockings of each other. Like it was like a group inside joke. And for me, it was these random sounds I would make, and usually out of like frustration. So one of them was like, "Mwah," every time I would hit a cobblestone, and the Joey would just stop. And so I'd be like, "Mwah," like that every time. So that was something that they joked about with me. And then the other one that they joked about was this camper van. When I finally figured out how to flip the seat around, my sound that I made was, "Aha!" And I only know that because they repeated that for the rest of the trip for random things. Oh, kids are funny. And then the other one I did was later on. I was getting frustrated with how much laundry I had to do. I just felt like there was more room for respect in regards to caring for clothes and eating. And so I was like, eat over your plate like a human being. And it's still repeated to me now. Anytime somebody spills, it's a eat over your plate like a human being. Use a plate. That's fine. It's embarrassing, but it's fine. Anyway, the trickiest part for me after this initial check was making sure to get the pop top all the way in, like none of the netting sticking out. I had to use my whole body to pull it down and latch it back closed, because it wasn't automatic, which I kind of loved, because I don't know, I feel like those break. I don't know. We didn't have blankets. So luckily, Road Surfer, you can opt to have a bedding kit. And you could also opt for table and chairs. You can opt for the kitchen kit. Car seats. We put a booster for our 8-year-old and a full-on car seat for our 4-year-old, just to be extra safe. We chose these packages because we weren't traveling with this kind of stuff. And usually when you get a camper van like this, you rent it, you take it home, you fill it with things that you need, you load it up like a suitcase, and then you go. But we were coming and then not staying. This was just a part of our trip. So we weren't going to be bringing things like forks and cooking ware and bedding. We didn't want to buy it either. Same thing with the table and chairs. So this was amazing and super helpful. I recommend getting the insurance just because you don't know what's going to happen, but you are held accountable for that, including like accidental things. For example, on the last day, my husband helped us close the awning. He didn't know that when you put the legs in, they had to go like in this inserted pocket so they didn't fall back out. I didn't check that. I didn't think about it. I didn't realize it was even not done correctly until we did the check when we checked it back in. and we checked it back in, they do the same thing. They open everything up, they turn everything on, they make sure everything is still working exactly how it worked when you left, including the awning. And when she was unrolling the awning, one of the legs just came out and swooped across the van and scratched it. It was a very minor scratch. I think most of it she wiped off with her finger, and she just charged it to the insurance, so that's fine. I think I would have been more upset if it was more expensive, but it wasn't. So, but I recommend the insurance. So I have an international driver's license because I lived in Germany and it still hadn't expired yet. I don't know if that makes a difference or not. They still checked my American license too. So I don't know if that makes a difference. I would recommend doing some kind of study of the laws of the road first, because they are different than the States, and you don't want to mess that up when you're driving a rented vehicle, obviously. I feel like that goes without saying, but I just feel like I should add that in. So after we got everything sorted out and everybody in their seat and all the things, we still needed a couple items, right? Because we weren't camping the entire time, just this little pocket of time. We went to Decathlon, and they also participate in solds, and we love that. Yes, we went and picked up essential things, but we also picked up not essential things. Like, they're essential, but not for this trip. Does that make sense? Like, we picked up cleats and workout bags and ballet gear, all for the upcoming school year, because they were extremely on sale. And we're not talking about like just Decathlon brand things. We're talking like Adidas and Hoka's and Nike. What else did we see there? So many great brands. I love Decathlon. I love it so much. So we went into Decathlon and had a great time. And by that, I mean we bought a lot of stuff. Some of the things that we bought were necessary for this trip immediately, like some hats and some sunscreen and more swimsuits, water shoes. Yeah, I remember in Zadar it was pretty rocky to the point where the kids were starting to ask about water shoes because we were seeing them. So we picked up some of those, very cheap. I don't think Milo used hers from then on. She doesn't really like shoes, so. She also has jelly shoes that she thinks are prettier, so she used those mostly for her water shoes. It was a little annoying because she kept getting rocks in them, and so we'd have to take shoes on and off instead of just keep on water shoes that don't get rocks in them. Mom life, man. After all of our shopping, our van was very full. But we were also really hungry. And the burger place that we thought would be open by the time we were done shopping had opened, but they wouldn't have any food ready for at least 45 minutes after that. I feel like that's kind of a typical European situation. So I wasn't like mad or surprised. Exactly, I was just hungry and disappointed that like I wasn't in the mood. My kids weren't in the mood. We just went somewhere else for food. And by the time we ate, everybody got back in the van. It was getting close to bedtime. And so I felt a little cornered into where we were staying. I wanted to go onward to where we were heading, which is in the north of France. But it was getting really hot. We had just hit another spike of heat that summer. And in a camper van, you don't have AC. Didn't want to put the kids out in the heat. They just don't sleep very well. It's just hot. It's just, I don't know. I just wanted a little bit cooler, just somewhere else. Oddly, going south had lower degrees for the week ahead. So we went south, but first we actually stayed overnight in like a camping air, which is like basically a place that's open to camping. You can't full on camp. The air we chose was attached to a gas station, and a lot of truck drivers will stay there. It's like a rest stop, but better. There are showers inside if you need that. The most important part about this is that you can park there and sleep overnight for free. You just can't set up camp. You can pop open your top and you can sleep there, but you can't like get your table and chairs out and stay there. It's just for one night. It's for travelers who are going longer distances and like they just need to pull over and rest. So we stayed there for one night, got changed inside the restaurant, cafe, gas station area. We got breakfast there, which was nice because I don't think there was any places to wash your dishes. So it was nice that they had a cafe to eat there. And then we headed south. We headed south to Biarritz, which is a beach. I feel like everybody knows this, and I feel like it's like silly that I'm pointing this out. But it's a beach. It's like an hour southeast of Bordeaux. And we stayed at a camping spot, obviously. It was great. All we did was go down to the beach. They did have a pool. They had a store there. They had a restaurant there that we actually didn't go to. They had great facilities, which I feel like is pretty normal for European camping spots. We were there for about 3 days. Not very long. I love camping in Europe. I don't love it exactly in the States. It is different. I love it. This was our first stop, so we had to get kind of accustomed to which angles blocked the sun, but also let the wind in. We got pretty good at it. Biarritz, we just stayed at the beach. We walked from our camp spot out the gate, down the stairs, and just on and off stayed at the beach. That's all we did all day. It was perfect. It was, it was hot, but like we were at the beach. So of course it's hot. You just go get in the water. We went through about a bottle of sunscreen. The difference about this beach was that it was a top optional beach. I did mention that we almost accidentally signed up for a nudist camping spot. That was a little much for me. So I'm glad we didn't do that. I don't think we'll do that. But we've been to nude beaches before, like in Portugal. We were at a nude beach. I think most beaches in Portugal are nude, naturalist. Mostly we see it in the older women, like the grandmas. There were some younger women that also had no tops, and I was like, I mean, I don't look as good as those girls because I've had 4 children and I'm not 20. But I kind of want to participate. My upbringing had taught me that my body should be something to hide and be ashamed of. This was something that felt very rebellious. But first, as a mom, especially as a mom of a child who lives in the States where they are more prudish, they are more Puritan, they are more purity culture and modesty culture minded when it comes to women's bodies and men's lack of mental discipline. So I was worried. I checked in with my teenage son. I was like, hey, like, is this making you uncomfortable? So odds are you're going to notice. But once you notice, can you just remember to respect that person and look at them in the face or their eyes? Because that's where they are. That's where the person is. So you're going to notice their body parts. But, and he's like, yeah, okay. Like it was like obvious. Like, okay, I'm glad it's obvious to you. Just checking in. The best part of this is the old couples. The old women had not a care in the world. They were just free and out and living their best life. And I was like, I want a piece of that. I want to know what that's like. So I then asked my son if he would be bothered if I participated. He said no. He said no, not really. Like, I said, okay, just tell me if you change your mind. Just, it's fine. If you change your mind, just let me know. He's like, okay. He did not notice. Most of the time he wasn't even over by us. He was like skimming on the water the whole time and I was in the sand playing. At first, I always put my top back on when I walked to the beach, like the water. But then I started to notice that nobody else was doing that. They just walked in and then cooled off, swam around and came back and got some sun. And nobody seemed to notice. Nobody was leering. Nobody was making comments. Nobody was hitting on anybody. It was very nice. I wasn't expecting anybody to hit on me. I just noticed that the overall vibe was you could be safe without your top on. It wasn't an overly sexualized thing. It was really nice. It was really freeing. There were tons of internal dialogues going on inside my head that I tried to keep to myself, especially after when my daughters, who were wearing one pieces, also asked to take their tops off. It was cute. Most of the time when we see children and little girls at the beaches anyway in Europe, they're usually just in bottoms. I think all the way up until about 10, 11. So, yeah. It wasn't that abnormal for the girls to do it. I felt really weird, so I felt like I was making it weird, but I feel like nobody really cared. I think the only thing they noticed is that, like, I had, clearly had 4 children. I have stretch marks. I have loose skin in some places. You're welcome for that image. But I just think it should be normalized a little bit more, and I love that nobody hides their body at the beach. And yeah, I've checked in with my son since then to just kind of review that. And he just, I think he genuinely sees a body as a body. Is he attracted to girls? Yes. But we also make a very good point to have respect. And that our thoughts, sometimes we get invasive thoughts, sometimes we get intrusive thoughts, sometimes thoughts just pop in there, but we are in control of what we do and what we think after that. I don't know. I think it's working. To be continued, right? As all parents go through life, there's no book. You don't really know to the end, right? Oh, at this camping spot in Biarritz is also a surfing school. If you stay longer than 3 days, I think the surfing school is a week. I could be wrong about that. I'd look into that. But if your kids are into surfing or learning to surf at the beach, you should look that up because it's amazing. It looked amazing. You saw all ages out there in little wetsuits. It was a little chilly in the water in the mornings, but throughout the day it was fine. This also works great for early risers like ours because we don't like being the loudest group in the campsite. But they wake up ridiculously early, so you can sneak down to the beach and just play in the water until you're ready for breakfast. And then you go back, make breakfast with everybody else awake, and clean up, get ready, go to the beach, come back, eat lunch, eat dinner, clean up, repeat. So, that was our first day. We had a good time. I mean, aside from the overnight stay. But this was the first official stop in our camper van. So far, everything was going great. I highly recommend it. I will go over our next few stops in the next video, covering us also traveling on a ferry boat with the camper van. That was so cool. Thank you for being here, following along with our recap of our summer. Please feel free to leave any comments, corrections, questions in the bottom. We love interacting. We love learning about this kind of stuff. We love getting better. And we love including. We love when we hear about other people's travels. And maybe if you're also traveling throughout Europe this summer, just let us know. You can reach out on our socials to connect and see if maybe we'll be at the same spots over the summer. Maybe we can cross paths. That would be fun. So, anyway, thanks for being here. See you next time. Happy travels.